Give the video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, support us here at Burn It Down with Kim Brown. And let me get into this first story, everybody. And it's not a good one. Definitely not a good one. That's why I'm going to close the story with close the show with a better story. But this first story, not great news coming out of Tacoma, Washington, as if you could pop up the article for me, Will. Um, 3 Tacoma police officers were acquitted of the murder of 33-year-old Manuel Ellis, better known as Manny Ellis. Manny was murdered by these police in March of 2020. This happened actually before the murder of George Floyd. And it took a long time for charges to be brought. It took a while for this trial to get started. As you guys see, we are coming up on almost 4 years after the police killed Manny. And this is a most disappointing verdict from this Tacoma, Washington. Where is this, everybody? Pierce County, Washington. A shout out to the Hearts and Mama Lorraine. I'm sure this is news in your neck of the woods. Protesters, along with Manny's family, have been calling for justice for a while. And as we see, the American justice system delivered as expected. Now, this is the latest acquittal in a series of police brutality murders. I brought to you on the show the story here in Prince George's County, where Prince George's County police officer Michael Owen murdered William Green, who was handcuffed with his hands behind his back. Mr. Green was murdered after Officer Owen shot him 6 times while Mr. Green was handcuffed in his police car. And also the murderers of Elijah McClain, the young man who was murdered in 2019 after he was not only forcibly subdued by police for wearing a mask in Colorado and being injected with a fatal dose of ketamine by paramedics when they arrived on the scene. So this acquittal of these cops is yet another indication. Oh, by the way, like I said, the cops in Elijah McClain's death were acquitted, and the cops in William Green's death here in Maryland, the cop was acquitted. And here we are with another acquittal after the murder of a Black man. And this trial was interesting in a number of ways, because what the police assert is that Manny, while walking from a corner store, came up and punched the police cruiser window for seemingly no reason. And then police subdued him, hog-tied him. His hands and legs were bound, and he eventually died. The medical examiner said that Manny died from mechanical asphyxiation, which is similar to positional asphyxiation, which happens when a person is laying on their abdomen and on their chest on a flat surface, and substantial weight is applied to their back area, and their lungs are unable to actually get oxygen. Hypoxia is what happens to individuals when they are dying of mechanical asphyxiation. It was also found that Manny had methamphetamines in his system and also had a heart condition. He had an enlarged heart at only 33 years old. To me, that speaks more to how racism does the Black body in America, but that's another topic. So the police officers in their defense tried to say that no. It wasn't the 3 fucking officers who beat and tased him and basically crushed him to death. That's not why he died. He died because he had meth in his system, because he had a heart condition. And the medical examiner, to their credit, was very clear on the stand that no, it was the mechanical asphyxiation that resulted in Manny's death. Him having meth in his system didn't help, right? It made it more difficult for his body to gain oxygen, but for the fucking 3 cops laying on his ass, him with meth in his system would have walked home just fine. Him with meth in his system and an enlarged heart, I believe, would have made it back to wherever he was walking from just fine. but for the fucking cops deciding to murder him by basically smothering him. So I want us to actually pick up a couple things here. So let us take a look. What do we have here? So what was interesting about this trial is that there were witnesses, there credible witnesses that I found. Even one witness who actually managed to run video during the incident, or at least during part of the incident. We're going to hear from that person second. That's a white woman who was very disturbed by what she saw. But the first witness we're going to hear from here is a man of color. I can't tell if this is a black brother or not. Hispanic. He's got melanin on him. Okay. He was in a car when the police were attacking Manny with his children riding with him. And he gave testimony at the trial. And I want you guys to check out how this was covered. I think this is this Seattle news station. Let's check this out.
Crux of this case is really whether or not Manuel Ellis played or posed any risk to those officers. The attorneys for the officers say he's the one who started the fight and threatened the officers, but prosecutors say that he was attacked by the officers. And this morning, jurors heard from someone who said Ellis did not appear threatening or combative that night. This gentleman's name is Keon Lowry. He was driving by the Tacoma intersection that night in March of 2020 with his two young daughters in the car. He testified he saw Ellis walking down the sidewalk. He described it as a stroll when one of the officers opened the patrol car door, knocking Ellis down. Lowry says that officer started hitting Ellis, and then another officer came in and restrained him. Lowry testified Ellis at no point fought back. Lowry says he got out of his car and yelled at the officers, telling them they were in the wrong.
I felt I needed to help him.
Who did you need to help?
Manuel Ellis.
Why did you feel like you needed to help him?
Because the activity I was seeing wasn't something I've seen cops do.
When defense attorneys had a chance to cross-examine Mr. Lowry, they asked him whether or not his windows were up, and he said his windows were up and the music in his car was playing loudly. They pointed out, though, in an initial interview with investigators, he had said his windows were down. They also brought up a couple of other differences between his initial response to police and the testimony he gave today. He will be back on the stand when they come back from lunch, and later today we are expecting to hear from another witness, and that is one of the witnesses who did shoot some of the cell phone video of part of the encounter with police. Christine?
So it's interesting how the news decided to frame that, right? So as you heard, Keon, one of the witnesses there, said that he saw part of this testimony that was not included there in that package. Keon was pressed, I won't say pressed, but asked by the lawyers, well, what did you see the police doing? And he said, I saw them repeatedly punching and tasing him. That's why he got out and tried to intervene or yell at them in some way to get them to stop, because he knew he was witnessing a brutality incident. But the news there played up the defense's argument, or the defense's counter to that. Well, you told the police that your windows were down. Well, your windows were really up. This ain't about what the fuck he heard, okay? This is about what the fuck he saw. No matter if the windows was up and the music was thumping, he saw cops punching and tasing him. That is, to me, is not a huge inconsistency in a witness's statement. You know what I'm saying? And the package there alluded to the second witness. Now, the second witness was also in a vehicle. And I want you guys to listen. Hold on. Do I have that one queued up? Yes. So the second witness we are going to hear from. Oh, shit. Hold on. I'm sorry. Did I not put that on there? Am I a complete doof? I might be a doof. My apologies. Because there was another video taken of a woman. There it is. Okay, I'm goofy. I am doofy. Okay, it's the white woman witness. Will, thank you so much for that. I don't think that was the official title of the video, but that is what I named it on the doc. And this is going to be a TikTok. And let me give a content warning because I mean, for one, I should have given a content and a trigger warning for all of this, but you guys know how this show can go sometimes. So I would hope you guys kind of made some default assumptions about what the topic was going to be. But so the video, you're not going to see Manny in his final moments, but you are going to see this woman approach police in a great deal of distress at the brutality that she was witnessing simply as a bystander on the street. So let's take a look at this.
Oh my God, stop hitting him! Hitting him, just arrest him! Just arrest him! Oh my God, that looks so scary! They're tasing him, and I'm just like parked behind there the whole time. They're like on top of him, just like, you know, fighting and like tasing him. What can you do? You can't call the cop. Like, I mean, I don't know. You can't call the cops on them. Like, what? I just did what I thought to do at the moment. I wish I would have tried to do more.
Can't breathe, sir. Can't breathe.
From New York to Minnesota to Texas to Tacoma, Washington, we have heard black men say, "I can't breathe."
So that woman was called as a witness. And, you know, obviously the defense's job is to try to discredit her. She seemed pretty credible to me. Again, they were trying to point out small inconsistencies from what she told the police that night. But again, when people are witnesses or even experiencing stressful or traumatic events, sometimes aspects or minor details can be misremembered. You know what I'm saying? And but even with this witness testimony, y'all, these cops were found not guilty. So there is another aspect to this that I want to include because I mentioned Manny Ellis's family. He left behind his mom and his sister, who have been tremendous advocates for him in this. His mom Marcia and his sister Monet, and the Tacoma Action Collective, which is, you know, a group of Black organizers, or I believe this is a Black-led organization, were supporting Manny's family throughout the trial. And they posted a TikTok about the kind of treatment that the Ellis family was receiving from, I guess, Pierce County in Washington State. I'm not, was it this mistreatment by the police? But they also describe, and they're going to hear this in the TikTok, they describe harassment of Manny's mother. They describe better treatment given towards the cops and their families within the courthouse, more so than better accommodations or, you know, suitable accommodations made for Manny's family during this murder trial. So this is a couple minutes long. So I guess, and you know, she's recounting these details with all deliberate speed. So be patient, but like, check out this differing perspective of how the Ellis family was treated by the same criminal justice system that's supposed to be pursuing justice on behalf of their murdered family member, and the way that the courts not just treat, you know, how badly they were treated, not only by this jury seemingly, but by the whole system entirely. Let's take a look at that.
I'm an organizer with the Tacoma Action Collective, and I wanted to share 3 things that have been happening during the trial of the officers who killed Manuel Ellis that you may or may not know about. The first is that the family of Manuel Ellis has been treated quite poorly throughout this process. while the officers and their family and people who come to support them have the 4th floor conference room to eat, chill, decompress. Monet, which is Manny Ellis' sister, was giving a lactation room, which isn't even technically a lactation room. It's just a small box. There's no sink, there's nothing else in there.
So some of the video you just saw is of Marcia in the lactation room that has been provided to Monet, not only to use for breastfeeding, but also just as a space for anybody who's kind of there in support of the family. That video was Marcia walking and taking steps to see how many steps worth of space were in the room, and she was able to get about 8 steps in either direction with the chairs and everything in there. As an example, I stood in the room and I put my arms out, and you basically, without having to move very much, could touch either wall just by standing in the center of the room and not really moving. And also, we got a video of Marcia and I standing in the room together just to show how crowded it gets when more than one adult is standing in the room at a time. But I wanted to talk briefly about the courtroom itself. In the courtroom, we have the state, the defense. Behind them are their paralegals and their co-counsel. And then behind that, on either side, are rows for the family. On the defense side, they have 14 seats that are made available to them for family every day. On the state side, which is the side where Manny's family sits, there are only 12 seats available. The other thing about the courtroom is that on the side of the state where the family is sitting, there are 2 large pillars that are blocking a good third of the view of the courtroom. And in that third of the courtroom where these pillars are blocking, there's the jury, there's the main screen that the jury and the counsel teams are using to display evidence. That's also where oftentimes when the lawyer is examining a witness, it also blocks your line of view depending on where you're sitting to see the lawyer, to see the witness, and to see anything the witness might stand up and demonstrate specifically. Those pillars, of course, also work in the reverse sense that they are also blocking witnesses and jurors from being able to see the full view of the courtroom. We've also had a lot of issues with when, there are a lot of graphic things being shown, a lot of graphic details being talked about. The video of Manny being beat up, the witness Sarah McDowell screaming, has been played multiple times. It's heart-wrenching, makes you sick to your stomach. And when Manny's family is trying their best to, subdue these very big emotions, they get stares from other people in the courtroom. It's as though they didn't expect that Black people could feel so deeply and love so fiercely, that they are here and they are mourning this loss and going through the gauntlet of mourning this loss so publicly. And they stare at us like it's a zoo. Some of the other issues that we've been having in the courtroom is that a lot of inappropriate jokes seem to be made, sometimes from the judge, sometimes from the defense team, sometimes from the family of the defendants. It's just really disheartening. Like, at the root of this, we are here because somebody's loved one is lost, and not just lost, but taken violently from this world. And even on the other side of that, y'all are facing 20 plus years in prison. What is funny? I also want to remind you, early on in the process, the defense was, standing up and asking the judge to tell people to stop looking in his direction. And the judge said, hey, this is not Jerry Springer. But when that behavior is coming from that side of the room, radio silence. We're going to get into more of that right now.
The other thing is that normally during a murder trial, the person accused of murder is probably in jail the entire time. These cops were bailed out within 24 hours. But not only that, they come this close to us every day in court. They all get up during every break and walk past us in the hallway. But it's very uncomfortable and it feels very unsafe, especially for the family who has been intimidated in multiple ways throughout these past 3+ years. The last thing is Timothy Rankine we believe, took a picture of us, of Monet, James Bible, and the rest of us that were in the hallway. It was brought up to the judge, and the judge said that he can do whatever he wants out of the courtroom and that the family opened themselves up to the media. In reality, the family did open themselves up to the media because that was the only way to get his story out. They did not open themselves up to be the targets of the things that they've been experiencing. If you haven't read the Seattle Times article yet about Marcia, which is Manny Ellis's mother, over the weekend she found an air tag on her car, and on another car in her driveway her tires were punctured, and this was the Friday before she gave her testimony. Despite that, she still gave her testimony, but it's incredibly important for the public to know what's going on with this case behind the scenes, because transparency is very important and the public should know.
Thank you so much to the Tacoma Action Collective for that informative, candid look behind the scenes from the perspective of the Ellis family as they went through this very painful, excruciating trial for the murder of Manny. There's a lot of things there. First of all, for the judge to admonish the family when they raised the issue of the cop, the accused killer cop, of taking a picture, which, you know, isn't illegal, but it is an act of intimidation considering who it's coming from and who it's aimed towards. The judge admonished the family saying that, you all went public, so, the cop can do what he wants outside of the courtroom. And for the activists there to probably say the reason the family went public is because how else were they going to get attention for charges to be brought, for a proper investigation to be done. Unfortunately, the families of police brutality victims, those murdered by cops, that is the process that they have to do. We witnessed that very recently with the family of Deacon Johnny Holloman there in Atlanta. His family's made a number of appearances on Black Power Media and other outlets to try to raise attention in order to put pressure on authorities to produce evidence, body cam footage, to discipline and remove the killer cop from duty. Like, that doesn't happen if families don't get out there and get fucking loud and have press conferences and rallies. If it was left up to the state, it'd be like, well, we investigated, it was justified. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that shit happens any fucking way, even when the family does loud it up, right? But you can guarantee nothing will happen if people are silent and quiet. And for that to be weaponized against these people as a justification as to why a cop can further harass and intimidate them after he's already stolen their family member from them, fuck that judge. Piece of shit. And let me tell you, that righteous anger, that justified rage was absolutely felt by the Ellis family. And I want us to play the clip, if we could, there will. This was taken by journalist Grace Deng out there in Tacoma, covering the family's reaction to this jury acquittal of these killer Tacoma cops. And the person we're about to hear from is Monet, who is Manny's sister, and she's gonna spill some more tea about how these motherfuckers, how the people at the prosecutor's office, state's attorney's office, how the cops, how everybody has behaved towards her family. Let's take a listen.
Fuck Casey Arbenz for backing Brett Kurtzer, for calling my lawyer a fucking boy.
Report that news. Report that.
Fuck Wayne Fricke.
Fuck him. Yes.
Fuck Mark Conrad.
Yes.
Fuck Jared Osser and his short, stumbling ass with his little ass man complex.
Small dick.
Fuck Pierce County Courts. Who else are we saying fuck you to? Fuck Tacoma Police Department.
Yes.
Fuck the fucking police, especially those fucking racist ass police that killed my fucking brother.
That killed my brother. We feel you, Monet, and our hearts, Jesus, continue to be broken with you, with your mom, with the whole community out there in Tacoma that is experiencing this. If you guys search Manuel Ellis or Manny Ellis on the socials, you will see that the people are in the streets. This verdict is not sitting well, nor should it. And the way that we get change, I don't know. I mean, again, I come back to the title of this program. You have to burn it down. There is no other way. Okay, the amount of people who actually quote get justice, whatever the fuck that really means, and I think we need to do a better job of defining whatever get justice means. Does it mean that the killer cops go to jail? Does it mean that the family get a settlement? Does it mean both? If neither of those things happen, then what? I mean, is something better than nothing? Like, these are still questions philosophically that I kind of wrestle with. I don't know what get justice means for these people, but I guess if they want the cops in jail, then I want the cops in jail. But these cops are not going to jail, so then what? What changes with Tacoma Police Department, with their standards of practices? I didn't pull it, but I found another TikToker who had been covering this, who had actually been contacted, says them, that they had been contacted by the defense attorney for one of those killer cops, who was upset that this TikToker was rushing to justice. But it pointed out that one of those killer cops, while they were, according to this TikToker, one of these killer cops, while they were in the police academy, out of their entire class, was the only one in a simulated exercise to actually use excessive force that would have resulted in a death. And apparently, when one of those three killer cops was hired by Tacoma Police, the police academy had reached out to the Tacoma Police Department and made them aware of this information, and he got hired anyway. Oh, they said, well, that sounds like the kind of fellow we need in our ranks. And that guy had only been on the job a short amount of time. I want to say a year or less, 2 years or less, and already got a body on him. So please continue to monitor things that happen. And again, y'all, I mean, what happened to Manny Ellis, what happened to William Green, all this predated George Floyd, right? And it just goes to show you the amount of folks that the state ends up taking from us through violent means is so commonplace and so routine that when one story does manage to break through, when George Floyd's story does manage to break through because of the absolute horrificness and the duration of the torture that he endured at the knee of Derek Chauvin, because some brave young Black sister had the temerity to pull out her camera and record the most horrific thing she's probably ever going to witness. But for that is the only reason we know about George Floyd. And probably because of what happened to George Floyd is why we know what happened to Breonna Taylor. Like, after a certain point, it was more difficult to cover these things up or to keep them contained. But that's why I think it's really important, especially if you are active on social media, please go through and try to follow the aid and collective organizations, especially the Black-led ones in every fucking city you can think of, right? Shit happens everywhere. Cities big and small. And a lot of times, Twitter especially, maybe even now TikTok to a certain degree, they will be the ones breaking these stories before the local media, before the local news. You will see the activists in the community and the independent journalists, the community-led media in these places talk about these stories. And it's incumbent upon us to stay engaged and plugged in, so when we see these things happen, we can loud it up. But at the end of the day, Manny Ellis's killers have gone free. I'm not clear whether or not they were fired. I do not think that they were. So they're likely to return back to the job with a nice fat bonus in the form of, I don't even know if they actually were not getting paid. I actually think they may have been receiving pay. So maybe they didn't miss no checks for murder, but they probably still did get a bonus, would be my guess. We want to send our love and solidarity going out to the family of Manny Ellis. I'm so very sorry that justice was denied to you in this way, but I believe in hell. Okay, I do. I really do. And I think there is a special place for people who, with intent, decide that we're just going to kill somebody today, which it exactly sounds like that's exactly what these cops did. So, rise in power to Manny Ellis.